Hey everybody, this is David, and today I am going to be talking about The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies, the final Hobbit movie in this Middle-earth saga. So let us begin with this story. How was the story? I thought the story was really good. It continues from where the last two left off, specifically where Desolation of Smaug left off. I think the difference between this movie to me and the other Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films was when you watch Two Towers or Return of the King or Desolation of Smaug, they do this thing in the beginning where they kind of ease you into the story. They kind of like have a little introduction, where this movie kind of just throws you into things. They throw you literally where the last movie took place. And for someone who might be walking in to this movie expecting, a welcoming, hey, welcome into this franchise, and we hope you enjoy your stay. Now, this is our, welcoming you into this film, and then bam, we get into the story. No, this one just gets straight into the story and deals with the situation left in the last movie. Which is fine, I guess, for anybody that's been following the Hobbit films, but for anybody that hasn't, I do not recommend you watching this film if you haven't seen the last two, specifically Desolation of Smaug. This movie you need to watch at least that one. Although, if you're not watching by this point, clearly you don't care about the franchise at all, of the Lord of the Rings Hobbit franchise at all. So, with that being said, if you have been following, you know what the hell's going on. Speaking of Smaug, if you are looking forward to seeing more Smaug action, the dragon, I'm gonna say you might be severely disappointed in that. Now, as someone who's never read the books, I was expecting a little bit more Smaug than what we were going to be given. And with that being said, I understood, because this is based off the books, and if I didn't read the books, that's my problem. But the advertising made it seem like Smaug was gonna still be around for at least a little bit longer than what I thought. If I had to estimate how long he's in the movie, I'm gonna say he's about in there for maybe 15 minutes. And but I'm not gonna say where or when and how and why and all that. I'm just gonna say Smaug probably has 15 minutes of screen time. It makes sense how he's dealt with and all that, but yeah, if you're looking for a lot more Smaug, the dragon, better lower your expectations on that. The story, of course, is about Thorin Oakenshield, who is played here by Richard Armitage. Guys, I'm gonna butcher names, so just go with me here, okay? Thorin Oakenshield is probably the most interesting character in these films. Aside from Gandalf and Legolas and Bilbo, Thorin is also one of those big characters that you really get entranced with. And, in the last couple of films, you don't really know how Thorin, if you haven't read the books, you don't know how Thorin's gonna end. And to find out that he's being corrupted in this movie was really fascinating for me, and kind of made me think back to the other two films and started thinking about the clues that were kind of given that, yeah, there is something wrong going on with Thorin in those films. And now it makes a lot more sense when we come to his conclusion in this film. And, the actor, he does a really great... All the actors in this movie do a really good job. But there were moments in this movie where I thought the actor really pulled it off a lot of the times, especially showing his corrupt side, that this gold, this dragon gold, was really corrupting him. And it was great seeing that. And I thought, by the end of the film, Thorin, it turns out to be a real, true hero. Bilbo, another great character played by Martin Freeman. Such a great actor. And to see it come full circle at the very end was really good. This movie really brings the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy together. When this movie ends, you will see how this comes back full circle, and it will really please people on that. It couldn't have worked if Martin Freeman didn't play Bilbo right, and he does. He makes it his own, but at the same time you see the path that he's going to eventually turn to from the actor who plays Bilbo in the original Lord of the Rings. So it's really great to see how Bilbo's journey starts from the first Hobbit film and ends with this new one. Gandalf, there's a lot of returning characters like Gandalf and Saruman and Elrond. Aside from Gandalf, though, everyone else is more reduced to cameos, which is, Galadriel as well. There is a small mention to a certain character that I'm not going to say, but when you go see the movie, you'll know when you hear it. Legolas, such an awesome character. He has some of the most badass moves in this entire franchise. And once again, he, has those awesome action sequences, man. And he has a little talk with his father, too, that he's not too happy about. But I feel the way they end him is, again, it helps with the narrative to Lord of the Rings. And it really is good. It's nicely done. Including his father, played by Lee Pace, who does a really great job at playing Legolas's father. And showing that, maybe, he should be helping these dwarves, So there really is this huge all-out war, and it's cool to see where alliances lie and where, people draw their line, It's like not everyone's gonna have a happy time joining forces. And everyone's really after the dwarves, but the dwarves, put their stubbornness aside for a little bit, and they work together with the elves and the men, and they have this all-out battle. It's really cool to see how all of that is dealt with in this movie. The action sequences are a lot of fun. The CGI can be a little cartoony sometimes, I felt. I did feel out of all the Lord of the Rings movies, the CGI in this one was probably the weakest, which is weird because you figure since they had all this time to work on it, it would have been the best out of all three. Maybe it was the frame rates that was causing the problem for me, but I don't remember it being a problem for me in the first two films. But there were a couple of moments where the CGI felt a little bit off. Also, I'm going to bring up the dwarves. Aside from Thorin and a few of the others, a lot of the dwarves are really pushed to the side on this one. Some of them I don't even think got lines. And not that this is a problem, because, Thorin is the main dwarf that the story has always been following since the first Hobbit film. But it would have been nice to have a little bit more interaction with the other dwarves, since a lot of them really had a lot of fun, I think, watching them in the second film, Desolation of Smaug. So I was kind of disappointed that some of those ones that got a little bit more time last time weren't really doing much in this one. Keely is having his romantic situation with Teriel, played by Evangeline Lilly. I thought she was, again, acting-wise, everyone's fine in this movie. I thought everyone was great. But I just felt, the dwarf-elf romantic relationship there, I could have avoided. I didn't even think it ended well. The way they ended it, I thought it was pointless and dumb, and I don't think it was needed. Personally, thinking about the whole trilogy, I don't even think the character Evangeline Lilly played was needed at all. I think you could have just had Legolas there doing his stuff. That was cool. But her, I just felt was kind of wasted. I felt it wasn't necessary and was just there to add a romantic interest for one of the dwarves. So at the end of the day, what did I think of it? I'm giving this movie an 8 out of 10. Why? Because I did find it very enjoyable. I found the pacing pretty good. You know, it flowed really well. I just felt that there were some things that I could have left without, that they could have added some better things to the film, like add something that welcomes you back into this new film. Even if you're not a first-time viewer, what I really liked about like Return of the King, Two Towers, and Desolation of Smaug is how they, you know, did a little introduction, kind of like inviting you back into this world, and or welcoming you back into this world and giving you a little history or backstory on something. Unfortunately, this movie just throws you right into the action, so I think on its own, that's what hurts it. But as a collective, with the first two Hobbit films, I think it's a much stronger film overall. I think that's how the Lord of the Rings trilogy is looked at, as one constructive film, and I feel the Hobbit trilogy will be viewed as the same. I just felt they should have done something, because at least Two Towers, you can watch it on its own, and even though there's kind of not really a beginning and kind of not really an end, they still kind of welcome you into that world and that setting, and they kind of have an ending showing that maybe there's a little bit of hope there. Well, this movie, just like I said, throws you into it, and you just have to accept it and go with the ride. So with that being said, guys, yeah, the Hobbit trilogy is over, and I have done all the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies, reviewed them all, and it was a great time. You know, I enjoyed going back to Middle Earth. I thought it was a lot of fun. The cast in all these films are great, and I think everybody really pulled it off really well. And what would I think of another Lord of the Rings movie? I'd welcome it. You know, if they ever made a sequel to The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit or whatever, I'm open to it. Just, if it's not necessary to make it a sequel, don't, or what am I talking about? If it's not necessary to make it a trilogy, don't make it a trilogy, okay? Just make it one or two movies, or if it doesn't need a trilogy, make it a trilogy, but don't force it, okay? Because this one felt kind of forced. You could have condensed this and made it 2 films, but whatever, we're gonna forgive you, okay? With that being said, take care.